Hey guys, in this video we're going to be doing lesson 2.1, which is an introduction to functions. Our unit is all about functions. And the first thing that we need to talk about is a relation and what a relation is. A relation is just a set of ordered pairs or points. We show these in a table. We might show them in a graph, something called a mapping, or even an equation. There's not a lot of rules to be a relation. That's where functions come in. A function is kind of a more specific type of relation. There's a rule. The rule for something to be a function is that the x's do not repeat. The x's do not repeat. So we don't have the same x value listed twice. It doesn't matter about the y values, only the x's. So let's look at an example. I'm going to list 3 points that are a function. So for example, 1, 2, 5, -8, 7, 12. All of those are examples, or that is an example of a function. Okay. Because the x value, all the x's are different. Now, not a function, if I had the same point, 1, 2, 5, -8, but my last point, let's say, was 5, 9. That would not be a function because these two x values came up twice. Graphs can be a little bit trickier, not a whole lot. We have to use something called the vertical line test. And so in order to be a function, a vertical line, that's a line that goes up and down, cannot pass through more than one point on the graph. So I'll show you what that means. Let's say I have this graph. This is not a function because if I draw a vertical line, that vertical line hits my graph more than once. It actually hits 3 different times. That means it's not a function. All 3 of those points would have the same x value, probably like 1. That would be the x value. On the other hand, let's just say I turned that graph sideways like this. This is a function. Doesn't matter how many vertical lines I draw, it doesn't hit my graph more than once. So it is a function. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to attempt questions 1 through 4. Just write yes or no. Yes, it is a function, or no, it is not a function. Number 1, yes. All of the x values are different. Number 2, yes. All of the x values are different. Number 3, you might have been confused on this one because you probably haven't seen a mapping before. So this just means I have the point -4, 0. You just follow the arrows to find the y value. If we get down here, we have the point 5, 7 and the point 5, 9. So this one would actually be no, because the x value was repeated. And number 4 is no, because these 2 points have the same x value. They do not pass the vertical line test. Pause the video again, and on your own, try questions 5 through 8. All right, number 5. This one is yes. All of these just have one arrow, so they're all different x's. Number 6 is yes. Number 7, no, because a vertical line would hit in more than one spot. And number 8 is no. Again, a vertical line would hit in more than one spot. If you have any questions up until now, you need to jot those questions down and make sure to email me so I can answer you back. Let's get on to function notation. So we're going to focus on equations now. And something that's going to be new for you is that we're no longer going to use y equals. Instead, we're going to use f of x. And all you got to do is remember that f of x equals y. And we're going to refer back to this a lot as we finish up this lesson. So make sure that you remember that. This example I can rewrite as f of x equals 2x plus 7. Where x is my input, f of x is output. That last little bit really probably doesn't mean a whole lot to you. You probably don't have to remember that. Let's get into the example. If f of x equals 2x plus 7, find f of -3. So if you remember, f of x equals y. That -3 is right where the x was. So that means I replaced the x with -3. So in my equation, I'm going to plug in a -3 where the x is. F of -3 equals 2 times -3 plus 7. And you can type that into your calculator. If you do not have the Calculate 84 app, actually, yep, it's Calculate 84. I recommend you get it. 2 times -3 plus 7. And your answer is 1. So equals 1. Another way you could do this is by using the store button on your calculator. And I highly, highly, highly recommend that you use the store button. When you have problems that have negatives and exponents involved, it's very easy to mess up and get the wrong answer. So I recommend that you follow these steps. So number 1, we're going to type in -3 because that's the x that we're plugging in. And then you hit the store button. This button is located right above on. So bottom left. And then we're going to tell the calculator that -3 is x. So this button that I'm writing right now is right beside of the alpha button. So let me show you what I mean. -3. Now if you're using Calculate 84, it just says STO, and it puts an arrow there. So it was at the bottom, kind of on the left side. And then the X button, and hit enter. And what happened is it just gave us -3. So this time, once you have stored that in your calculator, you just type in the equation exactly as it was given to you. 2x plus 7. Notice this time, I didn't have to type in the -3. The calculator already does that for me. And then we hit enter, and it gives us 1. Let's go back and write that down. So, whoops. Gotta remember to hit enter after this part. And then we type 2x plus 7. And that gives you your answer. I would recommend doing all of these problems this way. So for example, on number 9, it tells us to find f of -9. So my x is -9, right? So in the calculator, type in -9, the store button, and then x. And then you hit enter. And then your next line should be -5x minus 14. Those two things should be on two separate lines, and they should match what I have written down. And your answer is 31. If you did not get 31, I want you to look back at your calculator and make sure that your first line looks like this and your second line looks like that. Okay. Number 10, sorry. This time our function is g of 2. So we're using this equation over here on the right. So in my calculator, I have a new x. So I'm going to type 2 store x, hit enter, and then we type in the equation exactly as it's written. -x squared plus 9x minus 1. You don't have to worry about parentheses. You don't have to worry about, well, if I have a negative and I square it, do I get a pot? You don't have to worry about any of that. You just type in the equation exactly as it was written. And you should get 13. So what we're doing here is we're taking the 2 and we're plugging that in for x. But all this extra stuff that I'm writing right now, the calculator does that. You don't have to plug in the 2 if you don't want to. The calculator will do it for you. Pause the video and try numbers 11, and 12. Number 11, you should have done 7 store x and then typed in negative 5x minus 14. And when you did that, you got negative 49. Number 12, you should have typed negative 3 store x and then negative x squared plus 9x minus 1. Hit enter, and it would give you negative 37. If you did not get any of those answers, first off, look back at your calculator and see if you typed it incorrectly. And if you're still having trouble, please email me and I'll help you. So let's move on to questions 13 through 16. You might be tempted to take negative 44, store that as x. That's not what you do. If you compare the two problems, they're different. In number 11, my number is in the parentheses. That's my x. But remember, if f of x equals y, that negative 44 is in the y spot, not the x. So the way we answer these is by taking our function, which we know is negative 5x minus 14, that was given to us in the directions, and we set that equal to negative 44. So you have to be able to solve a two-step equation. Think back to your Algebra 1 days where we did two-step equations. We first add 14 to both sides. And this gives us negative 5x equals negative 30. And then we divide by negative 5. Negative 30 divided by negative 5 is 6. If you look at the next three questions, they're all using f of x. So they're all using that negative 5x minus 14. The only thing that changes is what number I'd set equal to. So I'm going to do one more example with you, and then I'll let you try the other two. And I'm going to do number 15 because it's a little tricky for some people. So f of x is negative 5x minus 14, and I'm going to set that equal to negative 14. Our first step is to add 14 to both sides. So negative 5x equals 0. Negative 14 plus 14 is 0. And then I do the same thing. Divide by negative 5. And we get x equals 0. I want you to pause the video and try 14 and 16. You set them up the same way we did 13 and 15. All right, when we solve 14, you should get x equals negative 1. and 16, x equals negative 10, I believe. If you don't know how to get those, make sure you mark that down and email me, and I can help you. All right, these last four go along with the graphs, and those can be maybe the trickiest of any of these for students. So make sure you're really paying attention and following along. Like I said, I want you to remember that f of x equals y. Every single time we do this, we're getting an x value and a y value for a point. If the number is in the parentheses, that's your x. If it's outside of the parentheses, that's your y. So in number 17, is the 3 your x or is it your y? It's in the parentheses, so that's your x. The y value is what we have to find. So let's go back to our graph. Here's my x-axis. So this right here is the 3 on the x-axis. Any point that falls right along here has an x value of 3. The only point in that highlighted space is this one right there. So now you have to ask yourself, okay, well, my x is 3. What is my y? So let's look over at my y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My y is 5. So that means that f of 3 equals 5. Let's try number 18. F of x equals y. So this time the number -4, that's in my y spot. So I'm going to look at my graph. Here's my y-axis. If I count down 1, 2, 3, 4, so -4. Any point right along in here has a y value of -4. So that point that I'm looking for is this point right here. It has an x value of 1. That means that f of 1 equals -4. If you feel confident and that you know how to answer these, go ahead and try 19 and 20. I'm going to work through those. So number 19, that 0 is the x value. It's in the parentheses. It's the x. So what is the y? Well, at x equals 0, that's this point right here. The y is 3. So f of 0 equals 3. And number 20, the -2, that's the y. We have to find the x. So where y is -2, that's this point, the x value is 3. So f of 3 equals -2. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. Have a great